Good evening and welcome to the City of Pasco Council Workshop Meeting. The Council thanks you for being a part of your city government. At workshop meetings, the Council discusses issues, but no formal action is taken. Agenda packets are available on the City of Pasco's website at www.pasco-wa.gov/agenda. This meeting is also being televised live on PSC-TV. Channel 191 on Spectrum Cable in Pasco and Richland, and it is streamed on the city's Facebook page, website, YouTube channel, and Microsoft Teams webinar. This and previous council meeting video is available on the city's website. Lastly, the public may submit their comments and or questions by contacting the city manager, city clerk, or by using the Ask Pasco app. And before we go any further, I just want to make a reference here. This gavel I chose to use tonight was actually my grandfather's. He was given as he was the international director of the Lions from 67-69, and it is made from the first apple tree in all of Wenatchee. So with that, let's do a roll call if we can.
Thank you. Councilmember Barajas? I believe she was going to be remote. Okay. Blaisdell?
Here.
Cotta?
Present.
Oh, thank you. Cotta?
Here.
Perales?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Grimm?
Here.
And Mayor Milne, I understand, is excused.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, moving right along in this workshop, we are on number 4. It is verbal reports from council members, if we have any. Councilwoman Barajas, do you have anything to report?
Nothing to report.
Thank you, ma'am. Let's move on to items for discussion with opportunity for public comment. The public may comment on each topic scheduled for discussion up to 2 minutes per person with a total of 8 minutes per item. If opposing sides wish to speak, then both sides receive an equal amount of time to speak, or up to 4 minutes each side. The first one is 5A. It is the ambulance utility rate study. And Ms. Garcia?
Good evening.
Thank you.
So yes, we have, so this study is actually in partnership with the fire department and FCS Consulting, who is online. So I will actually hand it off to Chief Crowley.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. Thanks for your time tonight. Appreciate it. So we're just going to go into the ambulance utility rate study, and I'm just here to kick it off and give a little history, quick history, and a little introduction. So the city of Pasco established the ambulance utility in 2003. The reason for the utility is pretty much just to help recover costs for delivering EMS, or emergency services, emergency medical services, to our community. The big thing about this too, it also allows for a very efficient and effective way of delivering EMS, and that's through what we call a fire-based EMS system. In a nutshell, it means the fire department delivering EMS. The importance of that is because it's pretty much dual role. All our firefighters are EMTs, and about 1/3 of our line staff are paramedics. And so critical calls usually take more than just an ambulance. So if you had a private ambulance service, they usually rely on the fire department to help out. So this is just a joint venture. It just kind of reduces the redundancies, and it's a very efficient model having fire provide all the EMS. With the ambulance utility, it's broken down into 2 different categories. The availability and demand. The availability is pretty much just the reliability of our service, making sure we have the right stations, the right equipment, right staff to respond to a call when the call comes out in a reasonable time. And then the demand is the cost associated with the call itself. And so that's just showing any of the medical supplies, the medic unit, and the ongoing cost for that. So the reason for the ambulance utility study. So there's a few. But the main reason is to actually assess the actual cost of delivery of the service. So as here we show that with that when we get a rate coming in, it does decrease some of the stress on the general fund to supply the funds to maintain the fire department itself. Also, it's a legislative requirement for council. So as far as before you make a vote or decide, we want to make sure you have the right information so you can make a decision. And as you'll see through this presentation, you'll have a few options, and then you'll see a staff recommendation with that. And also, lastly, probably the most important too, is it provides transparency to our community. It shows exactly where we're going, the cost of our EMS service, and we try to not hide anything and be very open with the public and also with council so you guys can make the right decision. So with that, we'll go into the agenda, and I'll be passing this over to Savani. She's online. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you. And can somebody confirm that you guys are able to hear me? Okay.
Yes, we could hear you.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, council members, mayor. Thank you this evening. We had the great pleasure of working with the city team with this study. We have a comprehensive technical analysis. So we have a packed agenda. We'll start with looking at our study approach. FCS has done prior studies for the city as well as pretty much all Washington state. We look at ambulance utility overview, background, offer the technical analysis, existing level of services with their current forecast. We're exploring 4 different scenarios presented to you this evening. With that, one scenario is identified as a staff recommendation. While keeping all this information up front, we also want to look at what the comparable jurisdictions rates look like, so you're making an informed decision, and then what the next steps would be after this study is completed. Next slide, please. So looking at the study approach, the ambulance utility study is a comprehensive study. We look at 3 to 4 years worth of call history. So we start with data collection on the far left. We look at city's financial data, billings data, and incident data. Chief mentioned demand and availability. All calls are looked at individual calls. We've identified the number of times staff are available, EMS staff are available, they're actually in action and providing the services to build up our model. And then we also look at and develop the financial forecast. We'll look at the baseline of current cost. We look at cost in detail. We allocate cost between fire and EMS based on the city's actual incident data. And then we look at forecasting ambulance utility rates. So one of the components is looking at the customer base. So we look at the utility customer that the city currently has and divide the cost with that customer base. And looking on the technical side, we have a 5-step approach. First 3-step is really deep dive into technical analysis. Again, this study has been almost a year in making. So we really want to thank the city staff and team for getting us the data, validating the data, and moving this and making sure we're making a right and informed decision and the findings for our technical analysis. And then we're here today on step 4 of informing the council and public of what our findings are, what the scenarios are presented to you. And then step 5 would give you some information, and then a decision can be made, informed decision can be made in the future. Next slide, please. So looking at ambulance utility by Revised Code of Washington 35.31.766, it allows cities to form ambulance utility. So one thing to point out is providing guidance on establishing the rate. The rate that we're discussing today only looks at the operating cost. Does not include capital costs. So capital costs are excluded from today's discussion, and the rate does not cover for that. With Pasco Municipal Code, Code 3.85.020, city has established a utility, so it's authorized to set rate and to provide the service. So that's our general overview. Looking on the graph on the right, this is a graph that is very important and is critical with our analysis. Look at the total cost. The total cost of utility is funded through general fund expenses and then the EMS funds. And then from there, we separate our costs between fire and EMS. So the discussion we'll be focusing would be the EMS cost. Next slide, please. And looking at kind of giving ourselves some orienting where the last study was done in 2019 and how the city has sort of changed in the last, say, 6 years or so. So the population has grown about 6.5%. Billable units, so this is new construction, developments, about 15.6%. Population per 1,000 has gone about 43%. And a big outlier we're seeing, and we're seeing this regionally, is EMS calls. So calls for service has grown up 61.5%. So tracking that, the cost has gone up, and looking at where the city was in 2019 and what currently is the data for the city. And then looking at the EMS call, I think the next slide will share more about potential increases in the call. So like I said, we're seeing this post-pandemic of 2019, more calls are being placed. We're also seeing a increase in behavioral health calls. So the call volumes are increased, more resources are needed. And then with the city here, we're also seeing a community growth. So there is a proportional increase in population that's impacting the call increases as well. Next slide, please. So now looking at all overarching, we will look into the technical analysis, looking at the city's financial health, looking at the calls, the incidents, and then mapping out what the 4 scenarios are that it will be presented in front of you. Chase?
All right, and I'll just validate that everybody can hear me as well.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, so here we want to look at some of our assumptions and key definitions. And so there's a lot of data that went into this analysis. Just kind of give you the highlights here. For our forecast basis, we looked at the city's 2025 budget, as well as the 2026 budget and the collective bargaining agreement budget increase for both the firefighter and EMS costs. We've also been looking at various inflation factors. So beyond the 2026 timeframe, we're wanting to forecast costs through 2030. Based on the work that FCS has been doing for the long-range planning effort, we align these with our general costs increasing at about 3.5% per year, labor and benefits at 5%, and then our customer growth at just over 1.1%. When we're talking through this presentation, we have some definitions that we'll just want to bring back. We have billable units that Shivani mentioned, and so this is a standardized unit where one single family household equals one billable unit. Your commercial and non-residential customers are kind of scaled based on the number of occupancy and various other factors, but we'll be looking to kind of standardize that for today's discussion. We also have a percentage of rate recovery, and so this is the percentage of the rate charged compared to the maximum allowable rate that we calculate under the EMS analysis tonight. And then we have a total EMS cost recovery, and so this is a percentage of all EMS revenues compared to the total cost to provide all of the EMS services. Next slide. Bringing back this graphic that Shivani mentioned, we have our 2 different types of costs. And so we have our general fund budget for 2025, that's $11.3 million. And then we have our EMS fund budget that's just under $14 million, which looks at a total fire and EMS service cost in 2025 for about $25.2 million. We then go ahead and look at that using various allocation factors line by line within those 2 budgets to come up with the fire costs and the EMS costs. And some of the allocation factors we use allocate them completely to fire based on if it's a fire specific cost, completely to EMS, or something like dispatch services would be allocated based on the number of fire calls versus the number of EMS calls. And then your labor and kind of cost timing there is based on the amount of time spent on your fire and EMS calls. And those are based on 21 through 24 city incident data. At the end of all of this, we have about 30% of our cost, about $7.6 million related to fire, and the remaining $17.6 million are about 70% related to EMS costs. And we'll be looking at recovering that EMS costs through various means through the next couple slides. Next slide, please. Taking that $17.6 million in 2025 that we had from the last slide, we're doing the same allocation in 2026 using the 2026 budget, plus that collective bargaining agreement adjustment. And then in 2027 through 2030, we're looking at allocating those or inflating those costs at about 4.7% annually based on our various escalation factors. So from 2025 to 2030, we have EMS costs of $17.6 million up to $22.5 million forecasted. Next slide. When we're looking at our operating revenues, we're looking at ways that we can offset those expenses for the EMS utility. And we have two different ongoing revenue sources. We have our transport revenues, which is denoted in kind of that black box of the stacked bar chart here. That's about $4 million in 2025, and that increases with your customer growth. And we also have a very small amount of miscellaneous revenue. It's about $80,000. I'm not sure if you can actually see it. It's so small. But we do have those forecasted ongoing through the forecast period. We also, as part of 2025, have an assumption of grants at just about $1 million. And then our ground emergency medical transport revenue that we also have forecasted in 2025. These two revenue sources we are not forecasting moving forward due to the uncertainty of these revenues. So for 2026 through 2030, they have fallen off the forecast. Looking at the remaining costs, kind of in that icy blue, that's the cost to be recovered through rates. And so in 2025, that's about $10.2 million, and by 2030 increases to just under $18 million. Next slide. When we're looking at allocating those costs to our customer base, we have our equivalent billable units. And so based on 2025 customer billing stats, we're at about 31,000 billable units. Applying our 1.1% growth rate by 2030, that increases to about 32,800 billable units. Next slide. Taking our total cost and dividing it by our billable units, we come up with a calculated full cost recovery basis. And for 2025, we calculate that at $27.44. Because of the removal of the ground emergency medical transport revenues, as well as the grant revenues, in 2026, that's calculated to be $38.11, increasing to $45.55 by 2030. One thing to note is that the 2025 rate for the city currently is $18.61. So the city is assessing approximately 68% of the maximum allowable rate. And then looking at your other revenues to cover your EMS costs, we're looking at about 81% cost recovery for 2025. Meaning that currently in 2025, we're forecasting that about 19% of the EMS costs are covered through general fund support. Next slide, please. As we look at some scenarios and how we could look at different rates and different general fund subsidies, we're going to look at 4 different scenarios tonight. The first one is to continue that rate recovery metric of 68% that we saw in 2025, and assuming that the general fund supports the remaining 32% of the rate. Scenario 2, we're going to look at the current budget operating practice, and so looking at that general fund budget portion to cover the fire costs as well as a portion of the EMS costs. Scenario 3, we're looking at an 80% overall EMS cost recovery metric, and then scenario 4 is looking at that 100%, so the maximum allowable with no general fund support for EMS services. Go to the next slide, please. So we have a series of graphics here for each of these scenarios, and so we'll kind of walk through this first one in detail. Over on the left here, we have our monthly rate in kind of that green color, and this represents your 68% of the maximum allowable rate, which is scenario 1. In 2026, that new rate would be $25.85, an increase at $30.90 by 2030. The gray bar on top represents the amount that would be subsidized to the customers through the general fund at $12.26 in 2026, up to $14.66 in 2030. What this means for a general fund subsidy to the EMS fund in 2026 would be about $4.6 million, up to about $5.8 million in 2030. This does include a one-time large rate increase to the customers due to the removal of those GEMT and grant revenues from the forecast. So your customers would essentially be making up that lost revenue source. Scenario 2, next slide, please. This scenario looks at your current operating practice, and so we brought back our graphic from before, looking at that 2026 allocation. And this is where we have our general fund budget of just about $12 million in the upper left in that blue, and then our fire costs of about $8.1 million in that orange. And that difference there between the budget and the fire costs would be the amount subsidized through the general fund. It's about $3.9 million in 2026 and would increase to $4.7 in 2030. Looking back at the graphic on the left, that would be about $10.33 subsidized for each customer on their monthly bill in 2026, up to $12 in 2030, resulting in a rate of $27.78 in 2026, up to $33.55 in 2030. Next slide, please. Scenario 3 looks at setting the monthly rate to recover 80% of the overall EMS costs, either through your transport rates, your miscellaneous revenues, or your monthly rates. And that rate would be $28.17 in 2026, up to $34.12 in 2030, and ranging from that general fund subsidy of those rates from $9.94 up to $11.43 in 2030. That annual general fund subsidy that would be required for the EMS fund would be $3.75 million up to $4.1 million by 2030. And this would once again recover 80% of the total EMS costs, either through your transport rates, your miscellaneous fees, or your monthly rates from customers. And next slide, please. The final scenario would be charging the maximum allowable rate under the RCW, and so this would get to 100% EMS cost recovery. And this would be what we saw in kind of that baseline forecast of the $38.11 in 2026, up to $45.55 in 2030. Under this scenario, there would be no general fund subsidy in any of the years, and so the general fund would just be paying for the fire allocation of those costs, but nothing to subsidize the EMS fund. This represents the maximum allowable that could be charged under the RCW. Next slide, please. Every jurisdiction that we work with likes to see kind of how they compare to their peers, and so this is a 2025 monthly comparison of ambulance utilities within the area. A lot of assumptions and a lot of things go into building all of these rates, and so this is always an apples to orange comparison. There's a lot of different unique things going on with each jurisdiction, but everybody does like to see this comparison. And so this is a 2025. Many of these other jurisdictions may have an increase in 2026 planned or even adopted at this point. Next slide, please. So just in summary, we have our cost recovery options. All of these scenarios address additional costs in 2026 due to that collective bargaining agreement budget increase, and also assume no grant or GEMT revenue. 2027 through 2030 rate increases under these 4 scenarios are assumed to address inflationary pressures and kind of be in that inflationary ballpark level. We have a table that looks at the 2026 rate, the rate recovery, so the percent of the maximum allowable rate that is billed, as well as the total EMS cost recovery, so the total amount of the EMS cost that is recovered through your various revenue sources. We've also highlighted scenario 3 as the staff recommendation. And with that, I think it's the next slide and we can pass it back to the city.
I believe there might be a question.
Thank you for the presentation. Does anybody have any questions?
Okay, so, yes, we, as staff recommend scenario 3, which is the most balanced approach to reduce the impact into the general fund over time and with the goal of having the ambulance utility be self-sustaining. So we're here to answer any questions and incorporate any feedback into the scenarios and come back at the next meeting with a formal proposal.
I
Councilmember
have a
Cotter?
question.
The calls for service going way up, 61.5%. And then there were some justifications supplied there, mental health. Is there anything left to peel back there? I mean, is there a potential to reduce that number of calls? It just seems like, the population's going up 6%, but the calls are going up 60%. What's happening?
Like we were saying, and great question, by the way. Since the pandemic, we've seen a big shift in the types of calls we go on. A lot of it is we see with the opioid issues, we see some of the pandemic issues and are kind of falling into, they're still moving forward in today. But they use 911 as a system to really get their medical needs met. So it's almost like their primary care physician. One of the things we're doing as we see a lot of success is our Pasco Resource Navigator program. So that's a contract service that we do. We have 2 individuals. And so when we go to patients or see people out in the field that might not need to go to the hospital, we contact our resource navigators who go out and make contact. That's one of the ways we look at reducing the impact or the burden on the 911 system and the hospital system as well. So that is one of the things we're looking at and trying to maybe even expand with that and even regionalize with the other cities.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Councilmember Perales?
Thank you, Mayor. I didn't have any questions or anything. I just had a comment. I guess I came here with the intention of proposing that we do the full 100% cost recovery. I just don't understand why we would go with 80% if we're subsidizing to the tunes of millions of dollars every year. I think we need to align our services with our charges. So, I mean, we're facing a budget deficit. That money can be used for other things in our budget. Sure, it's going to be a sharp increase, but I think it should be self-sustaining. And we're not going to get 100% cost recovery. I know that, but at least it'll be higher than than if we go ahead and choose 80%. So that's going to be my motion would be, I would like for us to approve the 100% cost recovery scenario. So.
Awesome. Thank you. Councilwoman Barajas, do you want to add to the conversation?
Yes, actually I do. Can you please explain how much is getting reimbursed from Medicaid or Medicare?
Yeah, so it's a little over 2 million that's being reimbursed. And on the GMT side, it's about 2.3.
Okay. And that still won't help with the 80% recovery.
Right, and we are taking out the GMT for now just to be very conservative. So if it doesn't, at the federal level, if that doesn't change and we end up continuing to have that revenue source, then we would likely come back and adjust if needed. But at this time, we're just being conservative with the information we have at this time and excluding that revenue source.
Okay, thank you. Nothing else to add. Thank you.
Councilwoman Barajas, is there some direction you were hoping to give staff or a way you think we should go with this?
Sure. I'm going with the recommended scenario 3.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Cotta?
Leo's suggestion, I understand the logic behind it. Are there criticisms behind scenario 4 with the exception of a large rate increase?
Criticism? Not that I know of, except it is a large rate increase. And so looking at the what our community can tolerate, and with such a drastic increase, we see most of it's because we're removing that GEMT funding, which is a pretty big source. So we just wanted to look at if there's a phased-in approach, or if we can go in all at once, that'd be very good. But again, we want to be very cognizant of the impact it has on our community.
Yeah. Thank you.
I appreciate that. I guess,
Can I add to that, please?
oh, what was that?
I'd like to add a little comment.
Oh, go ahead, ma'am.
So this is in support of, again, what Chief Crowley just said. If we were to raise 100% the rates, again, we need to take into consideration the high users. The majority of the calls are individuals that are on a fixed income. You give them 100% of the cost, we're putting people out. They're going to have to decide whether they're paying for their low income housing, food, or medication. We're talking senior citizens most of the time. So hopefully people take that into consideration.
And just to clarify, if I can clarify, this is just the monthly rate, not the actual cost for service though, correct?
Right, that's the rate that residents would receive on their monthly utility bill, and it comes along with their water, sewer, and irrigation. It's all.
Oh, so yeah, it's spread across what
Right.
everybody's paying, not somebody that uses the service more often isn't necessarily paying more like that unless they're actually taking rides in the
Right, and
ambulance,
that's
like.
in the transport fees.
Okay. And I guess maybe my question's best for, Ms. Shivani. I appreciate some of the comparisons and everything that were added to the scenarios, especially to our neighboring jurisdictions. The number that stood out to me, besides the 61.5% increase for calls of service that Councilmember Cotta brought up, and to me, that just came across as another unfunded mandate from the state, the way they are doing business there in Olympia, and, those costs being passed on to us here in the city of Pasco. But I was wondering, the 68% recoverable rate that we are doing, does anybody have any information? How does that compare to neighboring municipalities? How much, I see the different rates in dollar amount, but as far as that 68% recoverable rate, I'm curious how that compares to our neighboring jurisdictions.
Can you?
Thank you. That's an excellent question. I'm going to have Chase help us because we are doing a couple of studies, and Sunnyside is another city that we're supporting. And I think Chase on Sunnyside, where we are in cost recovery for them.
Yeah, I'd say it's very rare to see 100% cost recovery. There's always some level of subsidy. It very much depends. Some of these utilities also have an EMS levy. I would say 100% is very rare. I would say somewhere in that 55 to 85% range is probably fairly typical, but we could get back to you with some better numbers on that.
Okay, appreciate that. Councilwoman Blaisdell, anything to add? I guess, go ahead, Councilmember Cotta.
Is there any accountability on the person making the call? Do they pay anything at all when they call for an ambulance or for an EMT or for the fire department to come help them out in some way?
So if I'm hearing you right, if someone picks up the phone and calls 911 and we respond and we make contact with them, do we bill them directly from that aspect?
Yeah.
Or just by services rendered? Usually if it's a transport.
Mm-hmm.
So if we go and provide a service and we take them to the hospital, then we would charge them.
Mm-hmm. So this is just funding you to get to them and then provide a service there.
Right. So part of that, when we talked about that rate, the reliability and availability, that's part of that. And so make sure we have the staff. And then the other part is actually providing the service, so the medications and the supplies.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful, the way you put it there, Councilman Cotta, that it is kind of the cost to get there and render the service, not to take them away if needed. And so I guess just if you would help clarify, just for myself a little and for the public too, Ms. Garcia, as far as these different funds, if really it's either the general fund supporting this through property taxes and sales tax, or this utility fee, correct? And so we're just kind of choosing which one we're doing, correct?
Yeah, and we do get, we do have some Medicare and Medicaid payments that come in. But typically it's discounted, right? We bill the full amount and then it gets discounted quite a bit. So we don't always get the full amount that we bill when it's a Medicaid.
Awesome, yeah, and I see those write-offs every month. Well, I agree with Councilmember Perales that, we are in a budget crisis and everything, but at the same time, I know a lot of our constituents are also struggling with their budgets right now, so I would probably be more prone to go towards the 80% recovery rate is kind of where I'd be on it. And
I don't need to think about it. Excuse me. Yeah, I think it's a huge increase when you're already getting a $10 increase, and a $20 increase on top of that is difficult. But I like the transparency of people knowing exactly what their dollars are going to when it comes from a general fund. Yeah, it just gets pulled in from some other tax revenue. And this is very direct, and people know what they're paying for when they do it. So I don't know. I'll be considering one of those two options.
Ms. Sigdell?
Mayor Pro Tem, if I can add few things just from
Yes, please.
my history with this fund. There's really three sources of revenue. One is when you transport someone, so somebody calls, you transport them to the hospital. One is the utility fee that goes in, which is essentially called an availability cost. So you're paying for the fire station, for the ambulance to be there when you call. And so it gets charged on your bill, on your utility bill every month. The other thing that we try to do is really connect the demand for the system. So for example, with some of the high foot traffic businesses, we charge ambulance fee based on the number of employees that they have within that business, because so if they have 6 or 7 employees within the business, that's equal to about 2 households. So we try to spread the cost in a way that feels equal. But the other part that is a little bit difficult is this is essentially a medical service. And so you have patients who we bill Medicare and Medicaid for, and what might cost around $3,800, $4,200 per visit, that is what it costs for us to go to a call. You might get $350 from Medicaid and $550 from Medicare. And so when you see those bills that you approve on a every other week basis, and you see the write-off and there's large amounts there, majority of that is from the ambulance fund as a write-off for those Medicare and Medicaid. And so there's some components there that essentially we have to subsidize or allocate overall. So those are the challenges that you're dealing with as well. Just want to add that in.
And that's probably the biggest thing that you see that jump, like we talk about that GMT. So if you're not familiar, that's that bridge. So as we talk about with Medicaid, if you're only getting $300 and some dollars per billable that you can bill out, we know no system can sustain this billing that service. And so that's where GMT came and made that offset and made that bridge. As we're being very conservative, is we're pulling that out because that's federally funded, and that really through the state is only supposed to last a couple of years. We're on year, I forget what it is, 5 or 6, and with the current climate with our government, we will want to make sure that we're not relying on that as a means of being sustainable, and so that's why we're pulling that out. So it's almost like worst case scenario, just to ensure that we can provide the service to our community.
All right, thank you. Anybody have anything else before we invite the public? Oh, sorry, go ahead,
Yeah, I was just
Councilmember
gonna
Perales.
just to make a note, if we would have implemented perhaps 100% operating cost recovery, we're not going to pay $3.75 million in 2026, 3.9, and goes up. We're burning $6 million this past year. $3 million, we cut that in half. So it's just I think we need to be a little bit fiscally responsible. Like Mr. Cotta said, people need to understand when they call for service what they're going to pay. Obviously, we're not going to get the full 100%, but we need to stop the bleeding. So that would be my only. Obviously, it's only going to be between the 80%, 100%. So whatever the council decides, I'll go with that. But I think the 100% operating cost scenario is the best one.
There was a graph about how much the citizens, the households are paying for this service compared to other cities. What about the cost of the service compared to other cities as opposed to what we're paying? I mean, are they fielding much less calls? Is there anything going on there that justifies paying less in these other cities compared to what we're paying here?
I can speak to, so for the city of Kennewick, they run more calls than us, and we're real close to Richland with those calls. So I can do some research and see what their cost per call is and what they do with that, if that's what you're asking. But the city of Kennewick runs quite a few more calls than we do.
Okay, no, that's good. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right, thank you, Chief.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it. This time, members of the public are invited to come up if they would like to speak on this issue for 2 minutes. Anybody like to speak on ambulance utility rates? Thank you.
I have a question that I probably can't answer right now, but I get charged for an ambulance fee through my mobile home park of,
Oh, your microphone.
oh, thank you. So I get charged an ambulance fee of $16.79 a month, along with billing fees of $6, and then $1 for mailing fees. How do I verify that the money that I'm giving my landlord and mobile home park going to these fees? Because when I pay for my ambulance, it comes out of Medicare because I'm on state assistance. So are we regulating what is happening on billing in our community with charges like ambulance fees and so forth, why is my mobile home park charging me that? Is that money going towards the city and the community for those charges? And we have the billings all over the place, but I don't understand why we're getting the ambulance fee along with. I would like to see if the city holds the mobile home parks or whatever accountable if they are charging us for that. Where is that money going? And is it really going to Pasco City? That's kind of my comment or concern on the situation of what we're just talking about with the ambulance fees, because it's being charged to us. So I'm wondering if the city has a way to see if you guys are getting that money that we're getting charged for.
I appreciate that. No, and that is a good question. Just I would invite you to if you think there is a discrepancy between what you're paying and the services you receive and what might be passed on to the city, I just encourage you to talk to staff and work through that, and they would have the information to do that. Anybody else like to speak on this issue? Going once? Going twice? Okay, we are going to move on. Thank you, everybody. Mr. Stewart, Ms. Sigdell, do you guys have enough to go forward with this information?
What I'm hearing from at least most of the council is moving forward with option 3, the 80%. Or do you want us to prepare both the 80% and the 100% and bring that, and the council can decide then?
That would probably be best, especially since Mayor Milne isn't here tonight, and let him have an opportunity to have that option, I think would be really good.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, number B, adjustment of utility tax rate, letter B, that is, adjustment of utility tax rate for city-owned utilities, and this is Ms. Sigdell.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and council members. Cities can apply taxes on utilities like electric, water, sewer, telephone, cable, solid waste, currently our rate for the city of Pasco for all of these services is 8.5%. The maximum tax rate for some of these very particular services like electric, gas, steam, and telephone capped at 6% unless the voters vote for it. So there was a time when City of Pasco voters voted an additional 2.5% in utility taxes. However, any of the other services or utilities that I did not specifically mention there, the council has the authority to apply as much of the utility tax as you see fit, the need of the city. The city relies on these revenues to essentially, it goes to the general fund, and it is the third major revenue after property taxes and sales taxes. So it's a pretty critical revenue source for the city. And it funds critical government services like public safety, parks, street overlay programs, long-term city planning, many, many things alongside property tax and sales taxes. The cities have been relying on these revenues. Some, like telephone and cable services, like we discussed last time, have been declining because of advent of cellular phones, which do not get utility taxes, as well as streaming services. So you'll kind of see those areas decline on a pretty steady clip in the last decade. To maintain the level of service for our government services, like I mentioned before, we're recommending that we increase our utility taxes by about 1.5% for city-provided utilities like water, sewer, stormwater, irrigation, and processed water reuse facility. And this 1.5% increase will provide about $900,000 increase in revenue to general fund in an annual basis. I will show you some, these are some options. Every 1% provides you with about $600,000 more in revenue. And there's cities across the state. We picked some equivalent ones. And what you'll see here is that Kennewick and Pasco, for example, have 8.5% all across the board. But you'll see in Richland, water and irrigation is at a little bit more than 12%. Solid waste is at 10.5%. So there's variation. Similarly, in Vancouver, you're looking at rates almost as high as 20% there. And West Richland is also 13.5%, 8%, 6%. So you'll see a lot of varying tax rates for varying services or utilities. And this is because council has the authority to apply the rate as it fits the need of the city. What we're recommending at this time is an increase from 8.5% to 10% for city-owned utilities only. So it would exclude utilities like electric, solid waste, gas, and cable television and telephone. And there might be a few others. It's not an exhaustive list, but that is the proposal in front of you today. Council can direct staff to bring this back for action in the next regular meeting. You can recommend that we revise the percentage, and we can come back with that if we have a council direction on that. Or you can decline to implement this increase and direct staff to present reduction in services in the future budget year. So those are the choices that we would have to make at this time.
Awesome. Thank you, Ms. Sigdell. Does anybody have any questions, comments?
Yeah, I have a comment.
Sorry, Mr. Prowlis, please go ahead.
I guess I would say I'm a soft no on this right now because my only issue with increasing it and only getting a little under $1 million is what exactly this money's going to be used for. If we're going to do this, I would like to there to be a stipulation where we dictate where the money's going to be used for, whether it's police and fire, parks and rec, and we direct it in the next budget cycle. But other than that, I don't see the reason to even bring this up. It's honestly a very small amount of money. Thank you.
Councilwoman Barajas, do you have anything to add?
I'm still processing, but from what I'm reading, this would be a 1.5 increase. Yeah, no, I'm processing. No comment just yet.
Okay, thank you. Staff is looking for direction. Councilmember Cotta.
Comprehensively, I mean, we're talking about some of these recommendations that we're making, even back to the ambulance fee and other things that we're doing just to try to get to solvency and get back to a balanced budget. If we say yes to all the recommended options, that's what's going to get us, that's what puts us on track for that.
That would be the goal, yes. You're not going to make one sweep that will balance the budget magically. So there has to be reduction in cost, there has to be increases in revenue. And where we find those areas of opportunity is going to be the challenge that we have to look for every time.
Thank you.
No, and yeah, I appreciate it. I mean, it's hard. I mean, like just kind of the last discussion, I see we're not done talking about these things. I mean, it is, it affects ratepayers, it affects taxpayers, but as Councilmember Cotta was saying, I think we do have a fiduciary responsibility to obviously bring us back to solvency and not live on our reserves over a long period of time for the city. Do you remember by chance, Ms. Sigdell, what was going on, why the voters voted to raise it at 2.5%? Was there some circumstances, or were there some circumstances going on that led people that way?
I will have to confirm this, but if my memory serves me right, it was for street overlay. And so we moved those funds to the street overlay fund to maintain our city streets.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you. Oh, sorry, Mr. Stewart. Thank you.
No, it's all right. I just wanted to follow up on Councilmember Cotta's statement as well as what Rich has said. So, and to some degree to what Councilmember Prowse was talking about on the last agenda item with ambulance fees and whether we should go to 100% or 80%. You're balancing your budget right now with $6.5 million, and that's assuming that stays flat, which it won't. You have to close that gap, but that gap's actually getting bigger year after year. A couple council meetings ago, we approved a $1.2 million increase in wages for the fire department, which we addressed a little bit here in our presentation with regards to ambulance fees. We're limited by state statute that we can't be reliant on property tax. That isn't an option to go to raise to bring in revenue because we're capped at 1%. So the only other alternative we have is these other fees, or like Ms. Sigdell said, is we have to begin reducing services and cutting back costs because you cannot continue to sustain using reserves at a clip of $6 to $7 million a year. Eventually you're going to run out of reserves. You're going to hit minimum levels and you're not going to be able to rely on it anymore. And so I think the council is correct in deliberating. This isn't fun conversations to have. I don't think anyone in this room wants to increase fees on taxpayers. We understand the financial pressures everyone's going through, including those on fixed incomes. But at the end of the day, there's a cost to us providing these services. And, a lot of these are things that we're talking about that are critical services. And so, but we have to be able to balance that financially and sustainably going forward in the future. And our cost of operation and everything is going up for everybody. So, even as simple as purchasing, water pumps or a new fire truck for the fire department or squad cars for the police department, those costs are all up significantly and our revenues just aren't keeping up. So these aren't popular conversations, but they are necessary, and I appreciate the council's due diligence on considering these.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. I guess I would, reluctantly, I go in the direction of, I think our responsibility as a council, though, is that fiduciary responsibility to balance our budget. And with a $6 million shortfall, we aren't going to get it all from one bucket of money, whether it be, the big ones like sales tax or property tax that I'm pretty fundamentally opposed to in most situations. So, with that reason, I know that we've had lots of discussions with staff in the past about, one thing that wasn't mentioned was efficiency changes. And I know our police and fire specifically have done their best to cut back on overtime and other expenses that add that. But I would be reluctantly in favor of the 1.5% increase.
Yeah, I agree.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead, Councilmember Barajas.
Sorry, I've had my hand raised. I do have a question in regards to the alternative. That 1%, how much closer does it bring us to meeting or closing that gap if we did a 1%?
That would be $600,000 per year.
Right. So we wouldn't gain anything really, right? I listening and reading the agenda, listening to the conversation. I'm in support of the recommended 1.5, but again, it's to me, it's the bringing it back to the taxpayers, where I feel it's a burden, but I also understand that we need to keep up the services that we're offering, and the only way we're going to be able to keep up with the demand is by distributing the cost. So I'm reluctant, but I'm in support of the 1.5 increase.
Thank you, Councilwoman Blaisdell. Or sorry, I was looking at you. That's my problem. Do you have anything to add?
I mean, I don't want no more taxes at all, period, but I'm kind of in the same boat with you guys, so.
Okay. At this time, I'd like to invite members of the public if you would like to speak in this. If our clerk would restart the counter, would anybody like to speak on the subject as a member of the public? Yes, sir. Come right on up. Just state your name and city of residence, if you would, please.
John Clayton, Pasco, Washington. I'm just curious, I'm looking at these numbers, you're talking about a 1.5% increase across the board, so that's going to put everything at 10%? Am I hearing that right?
No, what staff had recommended was just the city-owned services. So that wouldn't include gas, that wouldn't include electric.
Just water, sewer, storm drains?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Anybody else from the public like to make a comment on this issue? Going once? Going twice? Thank you, members of the public. Mr. Seward, Ms. Sigdell, do you have what you need?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. We're going to go forward. This is letter C, adjustment to utility rate and connection fee, water and sewer. And this again is Ms. Sigdell.
Mayor Pro Tem, Director Sarah will be leading this conversation. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and members of the council. We have seen this presentation speaking about rates and connection fees related to water and sewer utilities. This item was discussed on October 6th, and for that reason, I will not go through the presentation again, although we have it available if you would want to review any of the components. Generally speaking, what the discussion is tonight is to review the discussion on October 6th related to the need to increase water rates and sewer rates, and the consideration of connection fees to be increased as well for those utilities. Connection fees are a one-time fee that new users pay when they connect to the system. Rates are the continuous payments that are made by those connected to the utility. The rates, generally speaking, pay for the operation and maintenance of our systems, as well as the replacement of aging infrastructure, while connection fees pay a buy-in cost into the existing infrastructure they're utilizing at the time they connect, plus all improvements that are needed to serve that additional capacity that is needed. And again, this revenue requirement analysis, which is the rate study, is done such that our utilities continue to be solvent and we can continue to provide the services. With that, I will advance to the scenarios where for water, and you've seen this presentation before, so I'm again not stopping here. We've talked about what the systems look like and the assumptions on our revenue needs. And then here, when we get to the scenarios, there were 2 scenarios presented to you all on the water utility. A scenario 1, where there was an accelerated delivery of the Butterfield water treatment plant replacement. And that scenario is presented with 2 options. One that would be based on bonding for those improvements, and that renders an increase, as shown at the very top of the screen, of 20.75% in the first 4 years, so each year. If that same scenario were to be conducted through low interest loans for a total of $80 million of low interest loans, that rate increase is reduced. And so the number you're seeing there is 17.5% per year in the first 3 years, and a third year that is smaller. Then the second scenario, similarly, is a 3-phase replacement of Butterfield, which actually results in a proposed rate increase of 25.25% each year for the first 2 years, and then 10% the 2 next years. But again, if that same scenario 2 were to be accomplished with low interest loans, that rate would be slightly lower. This rate scenarios are accounting for a maximum connection charge being paid for new users, meaning connection charge for new users come to pay for that expansion cost of the system. And if the maximum calculated connection fee were to it's a policy decision whether the maximum connection charge calculated is applied or not. So if it were to be applied maximum, this is what the rate for water would look like, either one of these scenarios, whatever scenario you choose. If the connection fee were to be anything lower than that, this rate would have to be adjusted. So I'll try to recap that because it was very wordy. So you have these rates, which are the monthly rates for different scenarios, and this corresponds to a maximum connection charge if you were to choose to do so. Now, if you choose to not have a connection charge, these rates could increase to make up that difference in revenue, because overall there is a certain amount of revenue the utility needs to continue to operate and to be prepared to serve the new users. All right, so this is water. Sewer is a little bit simpler, and we'll go there. We only have one scenario, and that scenario shows us with an 8% rate increase in the first 4 years, which is what the rate would be set for. And this again corresponds to a full connection charge applied. If the connection charge were to be chosen at a lower level, these rates could increase to make up the difference. Your packet included a scenario where rates would be increased 1.5% from any of these presented scenarios for a connection charge that was half the maximum calculated. And quickly, to go over the maximum calculated connection fee, it would be for water, and it would change based on, yes, it's further along, I'm so sorry. Got ahead of myself. Yep, a little more. Yes, right there. Okay, so the connection charges as maximum allowable calculated. Changes for water based on the size of the meter. So for a single family residential home, typically the meter is a 3/4 inch, and that connection fee, the maximum allowable is $6,148. And for sewer, the same residential unit is $4,354 as proposed. Again, you have the ability to choose lower connection fees. And with that, tonight is just a discussion, and we would be bringing back the options that you prefer for action. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Director Sarah. Do any members of council have anything to add to, or any questions to ask or comments? Oh, sorry, Councilmember Prowse, lost my spot there.
I was looking at something, but did you go over the last page with the rate forecast comparison with half the connection charges? On our packet, there's a page with.
Yes, it is in the packet. It's not in my screen, but I'm happy to read that out loud. So, should half the connection charges were to be applied, the single family residential standard meter, the 3/4 inch, would be $3,074. And again, all the other ones would be half the number you're seeing in the screen. And then the rates, instead of the scenarios presented, each scenario would be increased by 1.5% in that case, which effectively for scenario 1, it would put the 20.75% increase to 22.25% increase. So it's 1.5% more than what was in the slide where I have all the scenarios for water. And similarly for sewer, the connection fee for a single residential unit would be $2,177, which is half of what is shown in the screen in green at the bottom. And the rate increase would be 9.5% for the first 4 years as proposed for the rate setting.
Does that suffice for you, Councilmember Prowse?
Yeah, and then just my comments would just be that I know we're trying to be more affordable in regards to housing. I just don't see where this helps out that endeavor. Not to mention, I wanted to know if we did get a memo from someone today, if that could be into the record. He brought up a lot of good points, but one of them was tied to the LID 152, and I mean, that's essentially going to be developed, and I don't know if they penciled out these costs when they went into that LID. So I'm wondering if that's just going to pause housing in that area. I mean, these are substantial. I mean, you're talking $10,000 to $15,000 more on each lot, essentially. I remember a year ago we did a presentation where we showed all our fees and stuff. I would love to see that table now with some of the things that are coming across our dais in regards to how much it costs to build a single family home. I think by now we have to be the highest in the Tri-Cities. There's a couple of things I have to think about with this, but I'm not a hard no, but I think I'll ask some questions offline in regards to that memo and then some of the calculations for how we got to those connection charges. But I don't know if this is the best time to do this right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Barajas.
Nothing to add, thanks.
Okay. I guess I just have one question, Director Sarah, and perhaps this is even better for Ms. Garcia, but just for the sake of the public, what would, because those are, significant connection fees. And if you could just give a summary, where would that money be going?
I'm happy to begin that answer, and if others want to add, I will pass it on. So the connection charges specifically pay for infrastructure that is increasing capacity. For example, the West Pasco plant that is being expanded and will allow to serve new users. There's a component there where there's also paying for existing infrastructure that is in the ground now and is allowing for that new user to be served, and that is mains and pump stations and so on. So it's a combination of the buy-in plus the new infrastructure that is being built in order to be ready to serve new users. So expansion of capacity is really the trigger for considering what can be legally charged for connection charges.
Okay, thank you. And if I can just ask a follow-up question, how does this relate to the low-interest loan we just, voted for the replacement of Butterfield? Is that mixed into the batter here somehow, or?
It does not mix with the Butterfield one, since Butterfield is a replacement of infrastructure. And so in that case, it has no bearing in the connection charges, but it does help in the rate, which actually is working towards achieving that $80 million of low interest loans that will allow for those rates to be lower. It's effectively the A version of each of those scenarios that you saw. There was S1 and S1A. So that helps with that. I think where you can correlate connection fee to other infrastructure and low interest loans is West Pasco. West Pasco has also received low interest loans from DOH, and that is helping with the repayment. Now, anything that is a grant is not accounted for in that connection charge, so it's discounted from the charge, meaning the dollar amount included in the connection charge calculation is lower because a portion of that cost is not being borne by the developers or the ratepayers. It's money being given to the city. So we did take into account anything that would be forgivable and reduce that connection charge accordingly.
Okay, thank you. If no one has anybody else, we'll turn it over to the public and invite members of the public to come up and comment on this. Thank you, Mr. Padvork. And we did receive your email, and just so you know, yes, or at least I read through it, this afternoon, the time that allowed. Most of my research for these meetings is over the weekend, but yes, I did take the time to at least skim real quick, but thank you. If you'd state your name and city of residence for the record, sir.
Yeah, John Padvork, Kennewick, Washington. I'll probably start this off just by saying that if people had read the memo that I sent and had any questions, I can field those. If people also want me to do just a high-level overview, I can do that, but you've got about 2 minutes to get from me what you need to make.
It's up to you, sir. What would you like us to know?
So a couple things. There's a question of why am I here, and I represent developers, which there's sometimes developers' interests and city interests are at odds, but in this case they're fairly aligned. If you look at page 4, page 9, you'll see that, at least according to the numbers I ran, which the city didn't publish a full rate study, so I had to kind of do my own research and try to piece it together. Had to make some assumptions that might not be the same assumptions staff made. But if you look at the green and yellow, that's the money that would be coming in from new construction over the next 2024 to, or 2025 to 2044. And so what you'll see there is that existing residents, the income that can come from them will pay for O&M, and it will pay for some of the new CIP projects that you have in your budget, but it won't pay for anywhere near all of it. There's a blessing and a curse to growth. You really need to have growth to be able to pay for those projects, and you need to balance it. And so right now it doesn't feel very balanced. A couple things, there's discussion of including the existing infrastructure. The logic busts with that. If you look at page 4, it's a concept of an old junky car that's got almost nothing left on it. And if someone said, hey, I'll charge you the original price plus interest, and it'll die really soon, then you have to pay to replace it. That wouldn't seem fair. And that's basically how this connection fee is structured. The law allows for charging existing infrastructure for things like when there's a fresh loan with interest, the city still has a burden. But it's questionable if it's legal to go back and charge for a plant built in the 1940s that's already paid for and it's about to be replaced.
Very good.
I had a lot of other notes, but
I'm sure you do. No, thank you for those, and I can speak for myself. I will go back and read that a little more thoroughly as time allows in the days to come. And I do believe that the city is in a partnership with developers to develop the city. I mean, yeah, we provide infrastructure. You guys want to develop the city, and so as much as we can work together on everything, I'm
and
always
developers
for.
are also definitely interested in avoiding the expensive cost of an appeal. Because that ultimately gets paid by the prevailing party probably. So if the city makes a decision that's incorrect, not only would there be damages that would possibly be recoverable, but also the cost of that whole mess would also be something that would be best avoided.
Okay, appreciate your thoughts, sir. Thank you. Anybody else like to speak on the issue? Any other members of the public? Going once? Going twice? 3 times? Thank you. So is this something you guys were gonna bring back again as staff, with Mr. Milne here? Or were you looking for more detailed direction this evening?
I think what I'm summarizing from your discussion is very likely bringing those 2 options that are included in your packet. We're hearing a lot of do the project all at once with the lower interest rate. Maybe we can do a little bit more of a creative rate structure where if we receive the low interest rates, then we have the lower rates, and if not, then we have the higher level of rates. We can kind of work with that. The other part would be just half of the connection fee than what is the maximum allowed.
I appreciate that. I definitely love options. Mr. Stewart?
Yes, if I can just make a few comments, and first I want to clarify maybe a question to Councilmember Perales on wanting to see the comparison of total connection fees to the other communities. Does this slide not provide you the information that you're asking for?
No, I was talking about, there's just the cost in general to develop. We did
Talk about all permit fees?
All the fees together.
Okay.
So,
Because on this slide, what we see is at the far right is our existing, we're the lowest of all comparables, right? And while I agree that we don't want to impede growth, at the same time, it doesn't behoove us to do it at the cheapest, because ultimately someone has to pay for it. So the balance we're trying to reach is kind of like was just stated here in the public comment was, how much does growth pay for growth versus how much of that cost is spread out amongst not only the new people, but all the existing residents of Pasco, right? And that's the balance we're trying to hit. And so I think this is important. And I do just want to clarify that as Maria stated earlier, the cost of the Butterfield replacement is not calculated into the connection fees. We're only calculating in new expansion of capacity. Replacing Butterfield is replacement of existing infrastructure. That's built into your water and sewer rates that everybody pays, that already benefits from that. These connection fees are based off of assumptions of what infrastructure has to be built in, whether it's expanding facilities at the wastewater treatment plant to add more capacity, purchasing more water rights, adding in more sewer mains, water mains, manholes, all those other kinds of things that the new development is driving the cost of. And so, and then one final point here, coming in as the new city manager, one of the things that I'm concerned about is that none of these include any assumptions of converting to radio read meters. Okay, we're doing this in an archaic way where we physically send somebody to every meter to read it, versus a system that automatically reads instantaneously across the community. And that one, there's going to be a significant cost to installing those meters, but it'll result in some cost savings over time in manpower and those kinds of things of reading that, and it also increase your accuracy. So in communities that I've been in that we've been able to implement this type of technology is we can find out probably within 24 hours whether or not you have a water leak on your toilet. And we can call you and say your meter is out of norm. You might want to go check and see because we think you have a leak somewhere, which saves the resident hundreds of dollars a month if we can catch that sooner instead of getting slapped with an $800, $900 water bill because they didn't find out that their toilet was leaking, right? And so there's some advantages, but none of these radio reads are calculated into the system. Now, we are installing meters in new homes and those kinds of things that can be upgraded to that. But at some point, I think we as a community need to look at making that transition because there's a lot of positive benefits to going to that point.
No, thank you. And if I can just add a little patch, Councilmember Perales, are you talking about, because I see that as the combined for water and sewer, but were you speaking more of a graph that has just all of the impact fees and really what it costs, kind of more all encompassing even beyond just utilities? Is that where you're?
Yeah, it was in June of last year. Former Director Gonzalez came up here and he did a presentation on all the fees, essentially the single family dwelling home pays. I mean, this just needs to be added to that. That's what I'm saying. We're adding costs onto development, and someone's going to pay the costs. It could be the developers, but I can see this impacting developers not wanting to develop, in Pasco. So that's my only
Okay, and that's kind of where I was following you, because I think I remember that, just more of an all-encompassing graph of what it costs to build a house, kind of almost in the entirety, at least just from, obviously not paying for the lumber and everything, but just what it costs from the municipalities, correct? Okay, cool. Awesome. Well, thank you. Let's go on then. Letter D, resolution award bid number 23465 for process water reuse facility phase 4 irrigation systems farm upgrades project to Rochchi Incorporated. Sorry if I butchered that. I apologize. Of Pasco, Washington. And I think we're going to hear from Director Sarah for a while.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and council members. This is, as you said, PWRF had an expansion plan, which the treatment facility we've talked repeatedly about, but recently we discussed the expansion of the land treatment system, and that is the field irrigation system where we dispose of the pre-treated wastewater. This project will accomplish exactly that. We will be adding 2 new areas to that land treatment system. And the project will actually build pipelines that will reach those 2 new locations and prepare for the installation of circle pivots for the irrigation itself, which is an item that is coming next in the agenda. So the 2 areas added are shown in orange in the map, and they are adjacent to existing land treatment system for the city of Pasco. For this project, which complies with our facility plan for that facility, we requested bids. We received 10 bids, which was incredibly competitive, probably one of the biggest bid openings since the last decade I've been here. And the lowest one was from Rochchi, and it was in the amount of $5,423,613.74. This is below the engineer's estimate by quite a bit, actually. Our engineer's estimate was at $7.2 million, but as you can see, actually in your packet, all the bids were tabulated, and you can see that there was quite a spread between all of them. This project will allow for compliance with ecology permitting of that facility for the land disposal system, so the waste discharge permit into those fields. And the project is currently planned to be funded through a bond that is already issued and some additional funds that would require a budget amendment for this project to allow for full cost to be paid. Originally, the project was planned to be paid with bond revenue plus a low-interest loan from the Department of Ecology, but the award of that loan award fell through. So once we knew we didn't have that funding, we rescoped the project to make the minimum improvements that would allow us to include these 2 new locations in our system and continue moving forward so that we can have full compliance in 2026 with our permit. And that is in coordination with the facility now being able to handle more flow. We need more area to land apply. So with that, I am happy to answer any questions you may have on this.
Thank you, Director Sarah. Any questions from council? Councilmember Cotta?
Just a comment, this seems pretty straightforward. This is good.
Awesome, thank you. Councilwoman Barajas, do you have anything to add?
Nothing to add. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Members of the public, would anybody like to speak on this issue? Going once, going twice, 3 times. Thank you. Let's move on to letter E. This is a resolution, sole source purchase of 3 valley pivots for design services for the process water reuse facility, irrigation system, farm grade upgrades project. And again, this is Director Sarah.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I realized that our title had a mistake in it. So this is a sole source for the purchase of this farm pivot. So we will get that corrected for next week. This item actually ties to the previous item we just discussed. You are seeing on the screen the orange rectangles that will host the new land treatment system, the expanded land treatment system. Those 2 locations will be served with 3 circles, and that is because the square in the bottom of the screen is actually divided by an easement from BPA, which does not allow us to have a single circle there. We need to have that split into 2 half circles, allowing for that easement to remain untouched. This sole source is to be able to continue to have the same type of circles that we have in the rest of the circles the city operates. We currently manage another 16 circles in adjacent to the ones proposed. And in 2020, there was a request for proposals when the selected one from that competitive process was the valley type. And so we want to continue to have that same type of equipment so that it's easy for our crews to repair and replace components and have things on the shelf to be able to do that expeditiously. The total cost for these 3 pieces of equipment pre-tax is $466,206.44. That is not to exceed that amount. And with your approval, we would move forward with the purchase. And this is part accounted for budgetarily within the cost of the project that you saw in the prior item. So it's included in that overall $7 million project cost. And I'm happy to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council? Councilwoman Barajas?
Nothing to add.
Thank you. Members of the public, anybody like to speak on this issue? Going once, going twice, 3 times. Let's move on to letter F, resolution, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers easement sewer main upsizing professional services agreement acceptance. Director Sarah.
Good evening again. There's just a lot of items for me tonight. This item actually pertains to a sewer project that will replace and upsize existing trunk line along the river. And there are 3 segments to this project proposed to be designed all at once to gain some efficiencies. There was a request for qualifications. We had 1 consultant submit qualifications for it. It was RH2 Engineering. The committee review their submittal and deem them qualified to do this work. And a scope for work for these 3 sets of improvements, which are all the same type of improvement, was negotiated. And a total cost of $942,491 was negotiated as a not to exceed cost for the design of these 3 phases. The 3 projects combined are estimated to cost just under $9 million. So this cost for design seems reasonable. The professional services agreement or this contract with RH2 would include services for the design, the permitting, and support during bidding process. And this project is actually fully funded in the design phase at this point through a low interest loan from the Department of Ecology in a total amount of almost $3 million. So 1.3, just under that. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Sarah. Questions, comments from council? Seeing none, Councilwoman Barajas?
Nothing to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Members of the public, would you like to comment on this? Here's your opportunity. Going once, going twice, 3 times. Thank you, Director Sarah. Moving on to letter G, resolution, professional services agreement with Transpo Group USA Incorporated for the Santa Fe Parkway and Road 76 intersection and pedestrian safety enhancements project. Director Sarah.
Good evening again. This is another professional services agreement. In this case, it is with Transpo Group USA, and this is for the design of improvements at the Road 76 and Santa Fe intersection, which the title is slightly misleading because it also includes some interconnect activities along Road 68 and some improvements fulfilling the gaps in sidewalk along Road 76. Just south of that intersection. So this project is funded through a Highway Safety Improvement Program grant with a local match. And at this point, our request is to be able to enter the agreement with Transpo Group for them to begin design. The design should be completed by the end of 2026, allowing us to begin construction in 2027. And this total amount for this contract, I will find it. Oh, here. This design contract is for a total of $369,116.05. And again, it's not to exceed, which means that the consultant will perform the activities and they'll be charging us monthly for the activities performed, but only those hours that had been used. And with that, I am happy to answer any questions. There's lots of explanation here on the funding sources for the match and so on, but the important part is that 86.5% is being paid by the grant, and the 13.5% remaining is the local match. So that's the ratio at which the city pays for these improvements. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Sarah. Questions, comments from council? Councilwoman Barajas, do you have anything to add?
Nope. Thank you. Well, actually, yes, I lied. Please correct me with the amount. You said 369 million?
Yes, the dollar amount is $369,116.
And 13% is local match, and the rest is
federal grant. Yes.
Federal grants. Okay. Perfect. Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Sarah. You know you're not going to get out of this without a comment from me, though. It takes them a whole year to put up a plan for this. I mean, I want to get going. I'm just got ants in my pants over here. It's going to take them through the end of next year to really complete just the plan for this.
Yes, the contract supports the design plus the permitting to be able to do it. And then the project goes through a review through DOT, through local programs that ensures that the design is being done in compliance with the regulations of the grant, and that our specifications in the project are compliant with DOT standards, which is important for the use of those dollars to be valid, right? So FHWA has some rules on how we spend their dollars, and that process can take several months. And then what occurs afterwards is once we have approval from DOT for implementing the design, we go through the process of contracting the funds to be able to have that construction phase readily available for us to be reimbursed. And that process occurs through the TAC at BFCOG, and then it goes to the board, and then it goes to DOT at the local level, and then at headquarters. So the overall process takes some time. It's not just the design, it's the design plus getting all the other things lined up so that when we put it out to bid and we award the bid, those dollars are readily available for us to start reimbursing our expenses.
Okay, well, I really appreciate you are a whiz at finding sources of funding outside of city revenue, so I really appreciate that. And I know with some of those other funding sources comes oversight, and that is a good thing. You know, and again, it does help reduce the cost for local taxpayers. But at the same time, man, there are just so many intersections, so many infrastructure projects around the city, really just that are in desperate need of funding. I have driven up on a accident there where EMS hadn't even responded yet. And it's just right around the corner of the fire station. I called 911, and it was funny, kind of right when they pulled the fire truck around, they just kind of looked over, and I waved at them. So yes, like so many others, that one is just in desperate need, and I just appreciate you working on this, and I know myself and so many other people will be excited to get this done, so thank you. Okay, moving on, letter H, Capital Improvement Plan 2026 to 2031, and this is back to Ms. Garcia. Oh, thank you, real quick, would anybody like to speak on this? Sorry. Thank you, members of the public. Going once, going twice, 3 times. Thank you, Councilwoman Blaisdell. Now to the Capital Improvement Plan, letter H, 2026 to 2031. And again, we're back to you, Ms. Garcia.
Good evening again. Yeah, so we will be going over the 6-year capital improvement plan, and we are going to focus today on transportation and what we're calling general government. So that's buildings and facilities and parks and rec. And on the following meeting, we will focus on the utilities. So we're just kind of splitting those up for you today. So overall, the plan is developed using council goals and various plans and studies, as well as assessment of the systems and any critical needs. So here we have just the general categories of the different funding sources. So as Director Sarah mentioned, she is very successful, the city is very successful at securing some grants, and that is usually the internal funds are the match for those grants, and as well as there's various types of low interest loans and then external bonding that takes place for these projects. And then there is a category that is for unsecured, and usually that's in the outer years, which is typical since grants are usually not secured that far in advance. Okay, so here we have a trend of the past CIPs. So you can see it's kind of slowly decreasing. So the current plan is at $498 million. Okay, and overall for all project types, it's a total of 133 projects, and that's in all the different categories that we'll go over in the next slides. And as I mentioned, $498 million over the 6 years, and 29% of that is currently secured. And for the coming year, 91% of it is secured. So here we have a chart showing all the different categories of the project types. Transportation, it makes up 34%, which is one of the categories that we will be focusing on today. So we have a few just updates from the prior CIP, some projects that have been either completed or are at near completion, which the majority of these have come to council with project acceptance. So just a highlight, a kind of recapping of the progress from the last CIPs. Okay, so here we have just as a whole, big picture, the different categories and totals by year. Again, the ones that are grayed out are the ones that we will be focusing on the next meeting. So today we will be going over building facilities, parks and recreation, and transportation. So for that focus group, I guess, for those projects, it's total of 85 projects and totaling 268 million over the next 6 years, with 78% of that being secured within the next year. So this is a lot of kind of the same information, just specific to the projects that or the project types that we'll be going over. So for these three categories, this graph shows how much is unsecured by year. And as you can see, starting in year 3 of the plan is where there's quite a bit that's unfunded. And again, that's mainly due to timing of grant awards and the amount of time that it takes for bonding. Okay, so we will be kind of highlighting some of the internal funding sources and just going over what the total impact is for each fund. And on the slide here, we have just a list of the projects that are being funded by this, and most of them are either, or most of them are matched to grants or have a bigger impact. And your packets did have a little more detail on each project. This is more high level by fund. Oops, sorry. Okay. So same idea on the majority of them are transportation, as these are funded through, for example, this is one of the ones that we were discussing earlier with the utility tax rate. That 1% that was voted for in the past, 80% of that goes to this fund. So for the economic development, the first 2 years are in the plan are budgeted, or 26 is budgeted for, and then the outer years there's not a lot of impact there. So for the REIT fund, again, this is mainly used for to fund capital projects. So that is pretty much the sole source for this funding source. Okay, and this is existing bonding that was secured in the past couple years, and we are kind of at that point where we are spending down the remaining amounts of the bonds. So just a couple projects that are being highlighted today are just the ones for Parks and Recreation, a couple that are going into 2026 and are either fully secured or partially secured. And we have here the amounts that are the total cost and the year that they are starting. And same idea for transportation, just highlighting a few of the upcoming projects and the funding source or the phase that it's in. Okay. And we have a map here that has the different projects, which kind of ties into what we were just discussing. And as I mentioned, the city has been very successful in securing grants. So this table here shows all the different projects and the different funding sources that have been secured. Okay. Actually, do you want to touch on this?
And this is Maria again. But in this slide, really, we want to highlight the dependency of both types of projects, transportation and parks and recreation or facilities projects, really reliant on grant funding and external funding and support from external sources, where we anticipate that the landscape for grants is somewhat drying up, and we've talked about this several times already. We anticipate that while we've been very successful until now, likely we will be less successful in the future because the dollar amount available and the number of programs available to us will be reduced. Just understanding where our state government and budget is, and then the federal prospect of grant funding just being reduced as well. So we want to call attention to the prioritization and ensuring that the plan as proposed aligns with the priorities the council has, because prioritization will be even more critical than ever to ensure that our grants are coming to fund, and our own dollars, all resources are coming to fund those things that are the priority for the council and the community.
Yeah, so with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, but overall, this plan is, it's not a budget, it's more of a plan, a roadmap for the next 6 years, and to focus our priorities on infrastructure and investment into the community.
Thank you, Ms. Garcia. Questions, comments from council? $500 million capital improvement?
I'll go ahead. I like a lot of the products on there. I saw a couple that are going to be in my district, and some of those high crash site areas. So no, just very appreciative and glad some of those projects are going to be kicking off here soon. Thank you.
Thank you. My sentiments exactly. Councilwoman Barajas, do you have anything to add?
Nope, great job. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. No, I agree. Both you ladies, Miss Sarah and Miss Garcia. It's difficult. We are a growing city, and I wish we had money, and I know staff does, just to build the Burns Road extension, or to improve intersections, or to add some of these overpasses, but yet we have a $6 million budget shortfall. Here we do have constraints, and we are very reliant upon these outside funding sources. And I appreciate the good job you guys have done, not only now but in the past. And as it's been well said, we just have to understand with those shekels come shackles sometimes, and that's just kind of our way, but appreciate it. Members of the public, would you like to comment on the capital improvement plan for 2026 to 2031? Going once, going twice, 3 times, thank you. All right, letter I, a letter of support, City of West Richland's consideration of aerial fireworks ban, and we're gonna go to Mr. Stewart.
Yes, so I attended a meeting last week actually, where the mayor of West Richland requested that the city council consider a letter of support of West Richland potentially banning aerial fireworks in their community. My understanding is that they're the only ones, I don't know if I want to call it the Tri-Cities, that's what it's traditionally called, but if you could count in West Richland, it's the Quad Cities now. They're the only ones that allow it, which has created some consistency issues throughout the Tri-Cities. And the mayor is currently making efforts. He's on his way out. New mayor's been elected, and one of the things that he wants to wrap up is potentially getting this ban in place. And so he did request council consideration of a letter of support from the city of Pasco with regards to that. This city council in Kennewick approved this exact letter of support at their meeting last week. And so the only way for me to have a conversation with council about it was to put it on an agenda. So I figured I'd put it on a work session. I understand this has gotten some media coverage here over the weekend. I want to be clear, this is not us trying to meddle in West Richland and their rules and regulations. We were requested by their mayor to consider this, and this is why it's on the agenda this evening. And that's the only reason. And I didn't speak for the council about whether or not you'd be supportive of this or not. I just said I would talk about it with you guys. And so this is on the agenda tonight for your discussion and to provide me direction if you want to consider a letter going forward or not, or whether you don't. If you don't, then this is the end of the conversation. If you do, then I can prepare that letter for official action for council at next week's meeting.
Thank you, City Manager Stewart. Questions, comments from council?
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead, Councilwoman Barajas.
Harold or City Manager, can you please clarify, this evening around 6 p.m. on the Keeper News, they were already announcing that Mayor Milne had already signed the letter in support. So I'm not sure if there was a conversation already, but that's what Keeper was announcing, that this was already signed in support.
In response, I don't know the truth of the accuracy of that statement. I have not received a signed copy from Mayor Milne, and I hadn't even discussed it with him. It was put on the agenda at the last minute late last week. So as far as I know, no, the mayor has not signed this. He's not even in town right now.
It's in the packet signed here. So,
Yeah,
I mean, I think that's what they're going off of. So that's what I thought too. I texted them, well, you already signed this? Okay. I guess we'll talk about it tomorrow.
I don't know how that signed copy got in there because I did not ask the mayor to sign it.
He said it was his auto pen. Not to make a joke about that, but yeah. Either way, I think I'll go ahead and make my comments. I'll support this, but I think at the end of the day, we need to figure out a way to really enforce what we have on the books, which is not possible from my understanding of talking with the Washington State Patrol. There's like a board that overlooks firework safety and policies and laws, and they pretty much said that it really comes down to that misdemeanor and how the investigation goes. And so I don't know. I almost think I was going to throw this on Brianna's plate to see what she could figure out at the state level to go into how police officers can essentially use some type of other evidence, video and stuff like that to enforce it. On these nights, the calls are just through the roof, but it's not really stopping anything. They're just going from fire to fire, and no one's really. It's not decreasing, and I can understand why West Richland is going towards this because that kid fell through the roof and all that stuff on that one property. It was kind of West Richland, and a lot of properties were just lost. So that is something over there, especially over there with the high winds, something they have to really maintain and change something over there. So I'd be in support of this, but I don't know. I think really it comes down to getting law enforcement, getting our state together to figure out ways to combat this with the wildfires, fireworks, and all that stuff.
Thank you, Councilman Cotta.
Has there been any quantifiable data presented, amount of damage done to properties, houses, injuries, assessments? I mean, what is the primary justification?
I would have to work with staff to see if we have any actual data of what is actually attributed to fireworks during these times of the season. But in my career in multiple states, what I would say is the common arguments against this is, aside from the potential injury or damage to property, the predominant arguments have to do with any member of your public that suffers from PTSD, that this is very triggering for them. And then we're becoming more and more of an animal supportive culture in society. And a lot of people's animals this is very traumatic for them during this period. And so most of the arguments usually revolve around those two things. You also have the issue of the trash that's left behind after that needs to be cleaned up. Because a lot of times people don't clean up this mess after they're done. And so those are the primary arguments I hear about, but the biggest ones are triggering of PTSD for veterans and those kinds of things, as well as the impact on people's pets and animals. Those are the main arguments that I hear on it. A little bit to the enforcement issue, yes, it's extremely difficult to enforce, but if you don't have the laws on the books, there is nothing to enforce, even if you want to try. So the first step is having it on the books that it's not allowed, and then you can enforce it although this is difficult, I also hesitate to put our law enforcement officers in the middle of this. I mean, the last thing you want to do is show up to a neighborhood and tell them they have to not shoot these fireworks after they spent a lot of money on it. That's not a popular scenario to be in. But this is a balance between those that want to celebrate the history of America. I mean, we've been talking about with this upcoming 4th of July being the semi-quintennial celebration, and so a lot of people are going to want to celebrate that. One of the ways we do that in America on 4th of July is through fireworks, but that's becoming more and more unappreciated in our society. So anyway, that would be my answer to your question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, City Manager Stewart. And I appreciate the couple clarifications you made, because when I did read through this over the weekend, meddling was one of the exact words and phrases that came to my mind, and something I absolutely did not want to do. But that means a lot that they actually reached out and welcomed that input and everything, and that does make a big difference in my mind. And of course, I respect Mayor Crawford and her letter of strong support given to her by her fellow council members also. I think is important, but at the same time, I agree with Councilmember Perales. It is, kind of frustrating that, our law enforcement, they don't have the manpower to go out there. And then, as they've told us before, they prioritize, these life and safety issues. And by the time there's just so much going on that night that it is hard to get tied up on, what is a misdemeanor at that point. So, yeah, I agree with you, Councilmember Perales, that, some other solutions are also in need. Councilwoman Blaisdell?
I just have a really quick question. Walla Walla County, do they allow aerials in Burbank? Because I guess if people want to shoot off aerials, like, it's restricted here, but they still do it. So whether they're buying them from West Richland, whether they're buying them from Burbank or Toppenish, or they're still accessible. So
Yeah, and the challenge you also have is just the state of Oregon as well. I mean, you go 30 minutes south and buy them, and then you have your tribal nations. I understand that you can buy some pretty major fireworks on the tribal nation's property, which they're a sovereign nation, so
Right.
the rules don't apply. So yes, it's easily accessible, which adds to the complexity of trying to enforce. But again, if it's not on the books, there is no enforcement at all.
Well, okay, so I guess my point is we don't allow it here. We kind of have to police our own backyard type thing, but doing a ride along on 4th of July, they just can't keep up. There's just, people don't respect the ordinances that we put in place. So, I mean, it's a challenge no matter if we support West Richland or not. People just don't respect the speed limits. They don't respect the ordinances for fireworks. They don't, and I think when it comes down to it, that's the issue.
Right. I would agree. We don't have the resources or the manpower to fully enforce this. And typically ordinances like this or typically it gives the law enforcement or the enforcing agency the ability to come and remind people that, hey, this is not allowed within our city limits. You need to quit. And if you know that you've had that conversation and they continue to do it, now you have recourse to be able to proceed further with enforcement. But typically, in a lot of these, in a lot of communities I've been in, is we're usually just trying to educate and minimize that way. And it's only kind of in your worst case scenarios that you actually see enforcement or ticket writing or anything like that comes to fruition through enforcement of those ordinances.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. Just one more question before we turn it over to the public for a comment. Did you get an idea of why they are seeking these letters? I mean, why don't they just pass it? What are they hoping to gain from our support?
My understanding is that this is one of the matters that is a regional issue. and they understand that they're contributing to a regional issue. It's a divisive issue within their community, and I think that support from the other communities within the Tri-Cities, Quad Cities area may provide the support they need to make that difficult political decision.
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you. Members of the public, should we send a letter to West Richland about aerial fireworks? Comment period. If anybody would like to speak on this issue, let it now be heard. Going once, going, you're good, 'cause step right on up. We opened this up. Previous councils did not, have an opportunity for public comment in times like this. We want more transparency, more feedback. Please go right ahead.
No, I just have a lot to say always. But I think it's a good idea to support other cities within, so that we're all on the same page. Yeah, it is about not respecting other people's properties. There was a fire that started at the mobile home park because kids were playing. What do? We call the cops, but we need to be supportive of what Pasco's doing. Pasco needs to be supportive of Kennewick. We're all joined. So I think I guess my point would be like, what would be the harm in not supporting the letter where we all, I think most of us agree that fireworks are a big issue, and definitely my dogs work with anybody with a PTSD problem, and shoot these fireworks off. I just think veterans and fireworks are just an oxymoron. But I don't see how that would be a negative impact on supporting another community and trying to get what they're trying to do. If this works, then maybe we could do it. Or I think speaking to each other's cities is very valuable on these kind of decisions. So I think supporting, and your comments, I don't see anything negative or wanting something positive happening with fireworks. So I think I like this idea where we're talking with different cities and what their works might not work for us, but I think backing each other would definitely be positive way to go through the next transition.
Awesome. Thank you for your comments. And yeah, I think the more we can communicate with the neighboring municipalities, we can accomplish more together. Okay. So what do we think?
I'm in favor.
I'm not in favor. I think they should, make the decision without our influence.
Thank you. Councilwoman Barajas?
No.
Okay, and I hear Eric Ferguson in the back of my mind saying we're not actually voting. I guess we're just recommending, yes. Councilman Perales?
I mean, I would bring it back for a vote. That's what I would do.
I'm thinking we're pretty split up here at this point. I mean, my gut is to kind of just play in our own backyard and not I guess be a part of the decisions made on other sides of the city. But I do understand at the same time this is one of those kind of regional issues, and it would be good to be on the same page in a lot of ways. But I guess I'm going to side with Councilmember Cotta, and I'd rather stay out of this.
I guess that's 3-2, right?
Yeah, we're missing. Yeah, we are missing Mayor Milne. So I guess I would recommend just bringing it back when he's here.
Okay, we'll do that. I do want to clarify the question with regards to the mayor's signature being on the letter. So typically when we prepare like a proclamation or those kinds of things, we would put the mayor's electronic signature on there. That's what happened here. It very clearly states that this is a draft. It's not a finalized format. So that was prepared as a draft in anticipation that the council wanted to move forward. The mayor's electronic signature is already there. I will talk with staff to make sure that maybe that electronic signature is not added until council is actually approved and we're moving forward. So.
Perfect. Thank you. I think, yeah, there's some wisdom in that. Thank you. Okay, moving on. Number 6, miscellaneous council discussion. Staff have anything before we?
Yeah, a couple of things real quick. First and foremost, the long-awaited dome over the memorial pool has begun to be installed, going to be inflated today. The staff will work on some other finishing touches on it here over the next 7 to 10 days, but we're trying to get that open in time for swim meet season coming up in the coming weeks. Also look for an announcement for a ribbon cutting for that facility coming up in early December. And then just a reminder too that tomorrow's Veterans Day, so City Hall will be closed as well as all other city facilities, but we will have a public event at the Volunteer Park tomorrow at 3. So we invite all of the public to come join us and show our appreciation to the veterans within our community at that event tomorrow.
Thank you. Councilmember Perales?
I was just going to make, I just wanted to make an announcement that I was wondering if we could look into allowing us to name streets after people or parks. I know that's something that a couple of council members have, previous council members have talked about, and seeing that we're going to be funding Road 80, that Road 80 neighborhood park. There's a lot of people that I think we could pay, tribute to, and so just kind of wanted to bring it up to the council. Not looking for, I'm not making a motion or anything, but I'll probably send some emails out, but I just wanted to kind of make it public that that's something I'm going to be supporting, whether it's Cesar Chavez Park or something, or, honestly, I wasn't joking when I said Dave Zabel Way. I mean, he's been an integral individual here in the city of Pasco, and so especially in regards to the Broadmoor, or at least honorary or something. So I think there's a lot of people that we could honor with a lot of their hard work and dedication. So I think that'd be kind of cool and add a little bit more flavor and culture to the city. So
Awesome. Thank you. Councilwoman Blaisdell?
I have to comment on the Memorial Pool Dome because I drove by it and I was like, whoa. It almost looks like a spaceship that's taking over Memorial Park. So it looks really good. I'm so excited to go inside of it. I almost got out of my car to go inside, but I didn't know anybody that was outside. They'd be like, who are you? But kudos to whoever's working on that project because there's a lot of moving and shaking going on in Memorial Park. So I'm excited to see the inside of it. Thank you.
Awesome. Anything else from council? Number 7 is executive session. I am not seeing any. So number 8, with the gavel of the first tree, apple tree in Wenatchee, we are adjourned.